the widespread ignorance of objective reality poses a genuine threat to democracy. It appears that the people of the United States have ignorance in abundance, and the problem is it affects this entire political system. By this time, most people who follow non-corporate media have heard about Dunning and Kruger's study. They know all about it. In a nutshell, it established that most Americans are too stupid to recognize that they're genuinely stupid. But add to that a new German study by Mato Nigel. It's an important study because you begin to understand that the more politically conservative you are, the more Tea Party GOP you have in your blood and your brain, then the less capable you are of recognizing how incompetent and woefully underinformed and ill-equipped to make rational decisions about politics you are. The truth is, when you look at the studies, if you fall into that knee-jerk, always right-wing conservative camp of politics, you are what's considered the low-hanging fruit in politics. You're the group that behind closed doors, politicians and strategists laugh about because they know how easy you are to hustle if you fall into that group. You're the most likely to accept massive, irrational lies delivered by very manipulative neocon demagogues. You're the people they're after. You're the ideal target for extreme politics that borders on fascism. These aren't new ideas, ladies and gentlemen. These ideas have been around a long time. Take a few hours and read Erich Fromm's classic work called Escape from Freedom. And you're going to conclude that the same thing he concludes. And that is the least informed, the most irrational, the most extreme conservatives are the most susceptible to dictatorships. They're the most susceptible to extreme government, to fascism. That's what Erich Fromm says. This idea has been out there a long time. These studies, all they're doing is they're just another proof of what writers like Erich Fromm were saying a long time ago. Chances are, if you're one of those corporate media, the Fox media, really, if you're a Fox media bonehead who still believes that weapons of mass destruction were found in Iraq, Saddam Hussein blew up. You truly are the uneducated, childlike, impressionable, irrational, dangerous cog in America's political system that puts democracy at most risk. That's it for this week's Ring of Fire, but you can keep up with us throughout the week online at ringofireradio.com or on Twitter at Ring of Fire Radio and on Facebook. I'm Mike Papantonio. We'll see you next week right here on Ring of Fire.
The conversation went like this. Hey, John, Kim Jong-il here. Just wanted to call and let you know you're my guy. Those weapons of mass destruction got to be somewhere. As you can tell from the look on Andy Card's face, we've become a little concerned about the vice president lately. Whenever you ask him a question, he replies, "Let's see what my little friend says." But we get along well. Here I am saying, "Dick, if the Hunan Palace doesn't get lunch here in 4 minutes, we're going out." Nope, no weapons over there. Maybe under here. Oops, this photo wasn't supposed to be in here. This is the Skull and Bone secret signal. I'm not paranoid. But it was at this point in my presidency that I had a strange feeling somebody was following me. One thing about being president is you get lots of advice. Yes, Mother? Yes, Mother. Mother, would you just listen to us for once?
That can really finance its own reconstruction and relatively soon.
So the money's going to come from Iraqi oil revenue, as everyone has said. They think it's going to be something like $2 billion this year. They think it might be something like 15, 12 next year. They think it might be something like 18 to 20 plus the next 19. The next year.
I will soon submit to Congress a request for $87 billion.
Why did the administration so dramatically underestimate the cost of this war?
We did not have perfect foresight into what we were going to find in Iraq. The president quoted a British paper. We did not know at the time. No one knew at the time in our circles. Maybe someone knew down in the bowels of the agency, but no one in our circles knew that there were doubts and suspicions that this might be a forgery. Of course, it was information that was mistaken.
Based on thorough analysis, the IA has concluded, with the concurrence of outside experts, that these documents, which form the basis for the reports of recent uranium transaction between Iraq and Niger, are in fact not authentic.
At the south entrance to the White House, the President and the First Lady greeted the next President and First Lady. A formal tableau for the cameras, but it seemed cordial. You could see the power shifting, though. Look at Obama putting his arm on Bush's back, letting the president go first. And then a few minutes later, more history. The 43rd and soon-to-be 44th presidents, the Texas rancher and the Illinois lawyer, bound forever now by the unique trust the American people have reposed in them. They didn't seem tense, but they didn't seem warm either. And as they headed into the Oval Office, look how Bush guides in Obama here. This was Barack Obama's 7th visit to the White House, but his first one to the Oval Office. Just the two of them in there, and some recent history.
No one can ever truly understand what it's like being president until they sit behind that desk and feel the weight and responsibility for the first time. And that is true. After 3.5 years in office and much more gray hair, I have a deeper understanding of the challenges faced by the presidents who came before me, including my immediate predecessor, President Bush. In this job, no decision that reaches your desk is easy. No choice you make is without costs. No matter how hard you try, you're not going to make everybody happy. I think that's something President Bush and I both learned pretty quickly. And that's why from time to time, those of us who've had the privilege to hold this office find ourselves turning to the only people on earth who know the feeling. We may have our differences politically, but the presidency transcends those
brings an
differences.
interesting symmetry to the White House collection. It now starts and ends with a George W. When the British burned the White House, as Fred mentioned, in 1814, Dolly Madison famously saved this portrait of the first George W. Now, Michelle, if anything happens, there's your man. I am also pleased, Mr. President, that when you are wandering these halls as you wrestle with tough decisions, you will now be able to gaze at this portrait and ask, what would George do? I am also pleased, Mr. President, that when you are wandering these halls as you wrestle with tough decisions, you will now be able to gaze at this portrait and ask, what would yours do?
On a personal note, Michelle and I are grateful to the entire Bush family for their guidance and their example during our own transition. George, I will always remember the gathering you hosted for all the living former presidents before I took office, your kind words of encouragement. Plus, you also left me a really good TV sports package. I use it.
Helicopters and the sound of gunfire created a lot of concern this afternoon in one Houston neighborhood. This happened in southeast Houston around the old Carnegie Vanguard High School.
When you see this, you think the worst.
She told me, don't come home because it sounds like we're in a war.
2013.
Still, if you've seen one of these drills, it really is like a scene out of one of those action movies, choppers stalking the sky of downtown Miami. Again, let me tell you what all of this is that we know of. It's a joint military training exercise involving local police, also military, as someone shot some video of some of these choppers, military-style choppers, flying over 395 in downtown.
Machine gun firing, hit the deck.
28, 2012.
If you see military helicopters flying low over Minneapolis, do not be alarmed. They are training in an urban environment. The U.S. Special Operations Command will be conducting these exercises until the beginning of September.
Yep, that's the view outside my window.
A military mission in North St. Louis. Heavily armored vehicles are rolling into town, and while they come in peace, there are all kinds of rumors about why they are here.
We have called Army offices in St. Louis, and we've called Army offices in Washington, D.C., trying to get information about why this training is going on here and what it's all about. Well, we haven't heard back from anybody in the Army.
The media takes a little bit different tact. It's not don't worry or it's fun, it's like a movie. Here they have two people that say, well, we think it'd be great because it'd be a great way to scare people and get crime down. Well, no, actually the standing military is a crime. And using the Army for police functions is a crime. It doesn't stop crime. No one who has a different view is presented in this article. Chicago, April 17, 2012.
A pretty scary scene along the Chicago River turns out to be a military training exercise.
Two choppers came zooming right up the Chicago River here, close enough almost for us to touch them. There was nothing routine that folks reported as they witnessed the jarring scene of at least 3 Black Hawk helicopters zooming in and around residential office towers.
2012.
Special Military Operation Forces, in conjunction with the LAPD, conducting some military maneuvers that had many people wondering what is going on.
When a Black Hawk helicopter and 4 OH-6s, or Little Birds, flew over the city. Duran says the military picks environments based on what they might be facing in the near future.
If it's a mountainous terrain, they go to mountains. If it's a desert terrain, they use the desert.
Also, what we saw here tonight in downtown Los Angeles has been seen in Miami.
It's just accelerating. Let's take a look at this clip where we sent a team to Chicago. They saw there a National Guard training with local police and the Polish military. Now, in just a few seconds, you're going to see some Boy Scouts in rubber jumpsuits. That's right, they're pulling the Boy Scouts in on this.
Get on the ground on your knees! On the ground, on the ground! Put your hands on your face! On the ground, on the ground!
The Boy Scouts are being trained to be victims.
Do not move! Cover your face with your hands! Cover your face with your hands!
And in just a few minutes, the Polish military is going to come in full combat gear. That's right, foreign troops will come in.
Probably, 60 Boy Scouts down there with their scoutmasters and whoever else wanted to come along.
Notice they have them lying face down in the anthrax powder.
It's a very real-life situation.
Notice that they're
Everyone lie
laying face
down
down.
in the anthrax powder. We're going to move you.
Hostages, you are expendable. Please put your face directly in the powder.
Right. Yeah, all of a sudden the Polish BOA is participating in this exercise, which they didn't mention at all before that. It was just they're here to observe, Hey, it's BOA. Bureau of Operational Anti-Terrorism is what I think it stands for. So I don't know, this was a hard one to swallow, watching.
Occasions is coordinate search, where basically you are trying to get to an area, coordinate off to make sure everything's safe, and then actually search for caches of weapons or other kinds of contraband which could harm
trained to fight terrorists and more. Oh, what would that more be? The person who's helping them is A.J. Lowenthal, a sheriff's deputy. He says police chief from San Antonio, he had to kick out Delta Force for trying to bribe city officials in order to conduct training exercises there.
As far as we know, this is the first time that local law enforcement, local police leadership has actively stood up.
A couple of days ago in Houston, they were firing guns and attacking schools. What is happening is we're seeing the militarization of the police, and we're seeing the military used as police. That's a very frightening perspective. We've seen that before in our country's history. We've seen it in other countries. And in spite of what the people in St. Louis said that they put on the media, that is not something that reduces crime. What it does is it makes criminals out of both the military and the police. So we hope that there'll be more people like that San Antonio.